6, 5,
I'm like,
4,
makes deaf people here, and Donald Trump is president.
3,
Like
3,
one step forward, two step back.
2.
Easy introing.
Hello, and welcome to the Good, Bad, or Bullshit podcast. This is a podcast where three guys get together every week, more or less, and we pick a topic at random. We don't know what it is ahead of time. Then we discuss the topic. We give it and then we give it a quality review. And we have three verdicts: good, bad, or bullshit. Hence the title. My name is Mike. I'm one of your three hosts on the show, along with Crofton Steers. Hello, Crofton.
Hi, Mike. I'm triggered.
Yes, Crofton was very triggered before the show. And Bo, who was playing referee before the show. Hello, Bo.
Hello, Michael. Hello, Crofton. Hello, good, bad, or bullshit listeners.
He's very chipper.
Yeah. I'm not triggered. I'm in a good place right now, and I'm going to stay there. You guys are going to drag me in no matter what happens today.
Oh, just wait till we'll draw one of those. Remember Robot Life Partners? That triggered you.
Robot Life Partners Part 2.
Yeah, we should rig it so that it's something that's gonna make Bo angry, especially when I'm like, this is the dumbest thing ever, and he's like, I want it to be my life.
Speaking of happy places, though, Bo, this is the first episode, and you, like, as far back as a year ago, to my knowledge, had barely been out of the city and have now seemingly become a world traveler.
Trip number 3. It's trip number 3 in 2017. Probably, definitely the last one, but yeah.
And so where'd you go?
I went to Anaheim in California, where the weather is warm and the video games runneth wild or over.
You went to BlizzCon?
I went to BlizzCon. Yeah, it was that. For those who don't know, Blizz is short for Blizzard Entertainment, and con is short for convention. It is the Blizzard convention.
I thought it was like, well, what is it when a con man? Is it a convention man?
I actually thought it was
confidence man. It's a confidence man because
so it was a Blizzard confidence thing you went to.
Yeah, that's right. So basically, this small company turns into a big company, maintains a certain quality of game, builds up a community, does this thing where they invite people to share in the news and in the friendship and all that stuff, and people hang out in this place in Anaheim once a year, and it's a tradition. And I went for the first time, and it was a lot of fun. It was interesting. I would say more interesting. I
got two questions.
Okay.
Can I ask them?
Yeah.
Okay. Question number 1. BlizzCon is known throughout the internet for crazy costumes. At least every website I go to is like, check out the cosplay costumes from BlizzCon. Mm-hmm. Were there a lot of crazy costumes? And
yes.
Two-part question. Per 100% of attendees, how many of them were dressed up?
So to answer your first question, yes, there were a lot of costumes. I couldn't venture a guess. There were over 30,000 people, like attendees, not including, I guess, staff and people. So there were tons of people there. So I think it's still on the order of 5%, maybe less. Like, it's not a huge thing, but they attract a lot of attention, and they really stand out from, you've got normal Joe over there with his,
T-shirt,
jeans, shorts, glasses, maybe piercings, weird haircut, and then you've got Reaper, not just one Reaper, but you've got Lady Reaper and another Reaper and Reaper number 2. You got tons of these characters in incredible costumes.
So, question about the costumes.
Yeah.
When I dressed up as a Ninja Turtle for Halloween one year, at the height of Ninja Turtle popularity,
sure,
I was the shittiest Ninja Turtle. Like, I went to school and everybody was a Ninja Turtle, and my mom got me like green pajamas and cut out like a cardboard like sort of circle to make the chest plate or whatever.
That's not so bad.
And I had like a bandana with like green makeup on. Well, where they all had like costumes bought from the
Yeah,
store that had like
yeah.
either molded masks or like full suits and stuff like that with shell
Sure.
backpacks, and like my katanas were like little wooden pieces of shit, and they had like actual plastic katanas. So my question,
genuine plastic.
genuine plastic. So my question is, like, if there's like 8 people dressed as Reaper, is like one of them like obviously got a super done really well, super well? Are there ones that are like shitty costumes?
So the 3 Reapers were all incredible, and there's almost a subculture of cosplayers
Right.
that are just amazing. They could be working on movie sets, doing costume. Like the stuff is just immaculate. They spend the whole year prepping, and their stuff looks insane. And then yes, there are people who didn't spend as much time or didn't have as big of a budget or maybe are lacking somewhat, and so they do not look near as good as the other stuff. But the attitude is like your crappy Turtles Halloween. It's the spirit of the thing that counts.
Yeah.
You shouldn't, point to somebody with the black leotard and a Reaper mask and say, laugh at them. Like, that's not the spirit of the thing.
No,
But-
I know. I just
But
like,
if you're
as a
asking,
kid,
is there a spectrum of quality to cosplay? The answer is a resounding yes.
as a kid, when I showed up with a Ninja Turtle costume, because I was a kid, I thought I was going to be the only one dressed up as a Ninja Turtle. Obviously, that was stupid and not the case.
Yeah.
But if you go to this,
So good
convention,
question. Good question. But I feel like I would be remiss not to introduce. There's so much to talk about. I was there for about 5 days. I bumped into developers. I saw announcements. I got to watch esports live, which was a great experience. I got to meet a lot of people who were fans of Core. Didn't run into any good, bad, or bullshit people out there, but maybe they'll see it now.
At a gaming com.
Yeah,
There's
we've
dozens
got
of
to go to the debate convention. We should show up to, I don't know, the UN or something whenever they have like a convention.
okay. Well, remember when I said I have 2 questions? My other
Wait,
question.
I before
Wait.
you do, because I had a comment about your other question.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
If Blizzard was a genius, which maybe they'll listen to this and they'll do it, they would make a character for one of their games who was just like a white dude with a Blizzard T-shirt and jeans, but was like awesome in a game, and then so that everyone who would be at the like BlizzCon would be cosplaying just by being themselves. I think
That's
that
not
would be
that's
so
not a
hilarious.
bad
They would
idea.
sell a lot of T-shirts.
Yeah, just like a Blizzard T-shirt, some random dude, but he's in like what is this? What is the game you're into, Bo? What's it called?
Heroes of the Storm.
Yeah. So if it was just like there was one character who was just like a dude, a white dude with like a Blizzard T-shirt, and he runs around and you can play him, and he's actually good. And then you go to the BlizzardCon and you're like, hey, look at me, I'm Kevin.
So
That'd be cool.
I really truly do think we need to put conventions in general, like
Sure.
into the random topic generator if it's not already in there. But one thing I'm particularly interested about this convention, and it was the same when Bo went to he's been to more than one convention this year, is that he is like, I don't want to say a celebrity, but he is known for this other podcast. I'm just wondering, was there like when you're walking around, did people know who you were, or like are they like, that's Bo from Core?
This is a morbid curiosity. I don't want to come across as like arrogant.
No,
or anything.
I want to know factually, did people come up to you and say like, hey, are you Bo from Core?
I got stopped to the point where it no longer became fun. Like
Really?
Yeah. And
Shut up.
and because you're just like, yeah, I want, and it isn't that bad that anyone comes up to me or anything like that, but sometimes you're just feeling like poop and you're in a corner and you're just like, oh, and then someone comes up to you, and like I want to treat everyone with respect, but it's yeah, like there comes a point where it's actually, you're happy to meet
You told
people.
someone to fuck off, Bo? Is that it? You're like, look, you know what? Just fuck
Okay,
off.
okay, I'll tell you a story. So
I'm Bo Schwartz here.
So
people.
finally
I'm Bo
on
Schwartz.
Sunday, the whole weekend, I had a hard time nailing down time with Scott Johnson. We did the panel together on Thursday. It was just a live event in front of fans. Yeah, we had a room full of fans that came to see us do a thing live. Like that happened. But
Crazy. That sounds awesome. Anyway,
and then we had a meet up later. Like there was a lot of handshaking, hugging, and meeting, and awesome compliments. It was very good. But then like on Sunday, it wasn't Sunday, it was Saturday. It was like last day of the con. I finally nailed down Scott. We were going to have dinner in a restaurant near the convention center at the Sheraton or the Marriott. And it was a private sort of thing. But I had to run to the bathroom. And I really had to go. Like super had. I was my diaphragm or whatever. My abdomen was about to burst.
Okay,
with
point
pee.
taken.
He had to piss. I get it.
And then there was this, nice guy sitting down right by the bathrooms, and he sees me running, and he goes, "Are you Bo from the Core?" And I was like, "I have to go to the bathroom." And it's like, "You're not gonna stop me now. I have to go so bad."
He's like,
And-
"Oh, I'll come too."
And then here's what happened.
You want me to hold that for you?
I went to the
Mr. Schwartz?
bathroom, and I was eager to get back to my chocolate double bomb explosion that Scott and his wife Kim had so graciously, they paid for my supper that night. So I was like really looking forward to getting back to it. And in my haste, I walked past the guy who stopped me because I kind of implied in my tone that maybe I'd see him after I'd done pissing. And I went back and I sat down in front of my chocolate explosion. And I said,
Which is ironic because he had just had a chocolate explosion.
and I started to feel super guilty. And I was like, oh, I should definitely, that person's traveling. And, so there's just a lot of that. So I went out and met him and, did the thing. And that was big. It was just, it was a new experience for me. Like any other convention in the world, that wouldn't be a thing. Any other place in the world, this wouldn't be a thing. Although, side note, not BlizzCon related, but there's a gentleman on Twitter known as the Crushinator who saw, I got on my bus home from work the other day, and he stopped me. He said, "Are you Bo from Core?" And I'm like, "Hello." This is on an OC Transfo on the 86 or whatever. And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "I'm listening to you right now." And I was like, "Oh, sweet, man. Nice to meet you." So that happened. It happens in Ottawa too, but mostly it won't happen. But it was a new experience. It was interesting. I'm glad people check out our shows and love it, but it took some getting used to, I will say. So you wanted to know, I'm definitely more famous than you, Crofton, and I know it's going to keep you up at night until you I know that's why you wanted to know.
Guys.
You know what I like about this is that Bo has come to the realization after a weekend of semi-celebrity that he's like, you know what? There's good to this, but there's tremendous responsibility as well, and tremendous evil that could come of it. And I need to get away from it a bit. It's good in small doses. What I would consider, surprisingly from Bo, a healthy response. I feel like my response would be like, people like me? I'm on stage? This is amazing. Bow down, fools. Bow down. Here, autograph line right here. Let's start some signing. Okay. Yes, your breasts? Of course. Sure, no problem. Sir, please put your shirt back on.
Yeah, well, it was not like that. It was just a lot of kind people, and meeting them was a privilege. But it was an unexpected sort of aspect to the trip. I expected to be pretty unknown, to be honest with you, but so it was fun. The other thing that I want to highlight from the trip too, and so many big things happened, but this really impressed me. I'm a Magic the Gathering nerd, and you've seen me in my element trading Magic cards. I found a new, and I hate to be pejorative about it, but a new low in nerddom. I think this is a low, but there is a fully active pin trading community at this thing. So you know how you keep cards and binders, and you bring your binders and you show your binders and trade? Well, apparently Blizzard I didn't know this, Blizzard makes pins every year. Like pins for your shirt, pins, right?
Yeah.
Like as benign as pins, right? And there are people with binders full of pins, collecting pins, trading pins. I have never seen the likes of this in my life.
Only Blizzard pins?
Yes. And listen, because they make them every year.
I think this is a convention thing, actually,
and
guys.
they could be. They make I have one.
Topic soon.
I have one here. This is Nazebo. I got one at the media summit. I don't really collect them. I haven't even taken out of the package. I like my Chen one.
Don't. It'll be worth more if you leave.
But pins are a thing. There's my Cho'Gall pin. Huh. But they bring their binders and they sit in these big circles with all the binders and they're trading pins. And I was like, you're at a convention with awesome stuff. Why are you trading pins here? They're pins. Anyway.
It's but I've seen for Penny Arcade and other conventions, this pin thing is a thing. So maybe it's part of it encourages you to maybe interact with people you wouldn't otherwise. I don't know.
Although they had a badge system, so you could collect badges, and so you'd have to talk to a dev to get a badge, and you could when you buy a ticket, you get a free backpack, and you can Velcro it on your. There's a whole gaming system around collecting Velcro badges, but the pins the trading of it just I didn't expect it. And I didn't expect to see huge circles of this sub community. Cosplaying makes sense to me. I was like, pins? You gotta be kidding me.
It's funny that that's the bridge too far. It's like, Bo's like, I understand all levels of nerddom except the pin collecting.
See, with Magic the Gathering, you can at least play with the cards you're trading, and that's the purpose for trading. What are you gonna do with pins? Even Pogs, you can do things. Anyways, I'm gonna stop there. The pins were.
I guess you could make a pile of pins and then throw another pin at them and watch them fall apart. Isn't that what Pogs do anyway?
Yeah. I think so, something like that. But anyways, the con was super fun. It was like a family gathering. There's lots of little weird stories that happen.
Or you don't hate your family.
It's super.
And you don't know them.
It's super impressive that a corporation. This was the part. I looked around a lot. I'm like, this is all corporate interest. Like, never mind where the company came from. It's like this is a major publicly traded corporation that people flock to from around the world. 30,000 of them, and not to mention the millions watching online, who pay for the virtual ticket. Like what company wouldn't die for a motivated fan base like that, like a corporation? Like there's no Chrysler Con, there are auto enthusiasts, but
I bet there is a Chrysler.
There are big car shows.
There are car shows, but not a not a specific company.
Is there not? I'm gonna write Chrysler Con in Google right now.
Does Chrysler even still exists? They might have.
Anyway, it was pretty impressive.
I mean, it's not my bag. It sounds like you really had a good time and people there like it, but
I did.
I find it a bit weird. I'll just leave it at that because.
Well, I think we should do conventions.
Oh, by the way, I have one thing that I already mentioned this to you in Slack, but so you play the Hearthstone. I know everyone who listens to the show knows Mike doesn't play a lot of video games, but he does enjoy an odd game of Hearthstone. And I actually bumped into the game director, the head honcho of Hearthstone himself, twice. And I made him laugh. And he's kind of a celebrity known for his laugh because he laughs like... he laughs like that. So I got to make him laugh. That was pretty good. And I bumped to him again. And there's a cool new PvE feature coming that you're going to really like called Dungeon.
What does that mean, PvE?
Versus AI, like solo play versus the computer.
You don't have to interact with other human beings.
Yeah. Mike's favorite.
I don't want to rehab. We talked about this before the show where I was like, yeah, I like Hearthstone. I would not care about meeting whoever.
Well, I think Ben Brode would love to meet you. So, it's too bad you feel that way.
You feel like, keep playing my game, asshole. I want your attention.
So my friend Ryan and I took a picture with him, and then he retweeted it when we posted on Twitter. Not everyone gets a retweet from Ben Brode. He's a pretty cool guy.
But not everybody.
I, for one, have never been retweeted by Ben Brody.
Have you ever been retweeted?
No. That's a good point.
I think I did once.
Yeah, I think I did too.
Actually, I have been. The person who's retweeted me the most is a celebrity by the name of Mr. Beauchard.
That's true. I do retweet your stuff.
He gives me a pity retweet when I give
it's
my
not a pity retweet. I love your pictures.
When I give my quarterly tweet, he's like, he'll retweet.
Anyway, all right. So we've talked a lot about BlizzCon. It was super fun, and I can't wait to go back next year.
You had a great time.
Yeah,
and that's pretty.
And it makes me feel
awesome.
like it'd be awesome if we could go somewhere, the three of us. Maybe not BlizzCon because that doesn't make sense, but go to a con. Hang out, promote our show, and do a live recording somewhere.
But you hate on Blizzard too, Croft, and that's what you wouldn't go to. What? You're always not liking Blizzard.
Blizzard games or business practices. Most of their games don't appeal to me. That's true, but I would still like to go to BlizzCon.
BlizzCon, that's equally dumb. It's like going to the auto show and be like, I don't like cars or drive, but I like car show.
It's funny. It's like I'm a video game enthusiast, as you know, and it as Bo said, it has very dedicated fans and stuff like that. Like, I mean, I'd be keen on.
Yeah,
and
we visit this if we ever do conventions, but we should get to a random topic because this has been a pretty long preamble. Not that bad.
All right, all right. Before we move on to the preamble, I just want to give a little shout out to our modder, she's a mod on our channel, Wicked Kitten. We talk about her on the show a couple times. She was there, and I got to meet her, and she's a fan of Good, Bad, or Bullshit. She's here every episode, so I need to correct myself before I wreck myself. And she was very nice. All right, now let's move on.
Appreciate her full show.
Yeah. All right, so to the random topic generator, Michael.
Yeah.
Yeah, set it up. Oh, there it goes.
This is a good one. The 40-hour work week.
I feel like we've already done this one.
Why?
No.
Because it
we-
feels
do you
like we're
feel that?
maybe it's because we talk about it all the time, or Bo's
It's
complained about it in other episodes.
Daylight savings time. I think we kind of touched on it during daylight savings time.
Really? How's that related?
Because
No,
it's
I think-
nighttime when we leave work, and it would suck. And I'm just guessing. I don't know for sure.
No, we've touched on it in a lot of topics, and if anything, there's been one. Like if I went over our 200 and whatever 8-episode lists, I guarantee there's one that is that we really got into it to a certain extent.
I want to say two things to start off to maybe frame this. I mentioned this thing I heard the other day on this show, like a couple episodes ago. Baboons, our close cousins, spend 3 hours a day getting all the calories they need to sustain themselves, and the rest of the time they just do whatever they want. Okay, that's one end of the spectrum for work, quote unquote work. And then early industrial revolution, people in factories in Britain worked like 16-hour days every day. So that's the shit, that's the shit.
But for the baboons one, like you said, the calories thing, that's just eating.
Yeah,
but like
that's all they need
to build
they
their
don't
homes or whatever.
Yeah, they don't require shelter. I'm just saying, human beings at one point traded all that stuff for more work. I'm just saying you could live very simply, like a baboon. You could do that.
I'm gonna say Bo already does.
Live like a baboon, and just a few hours a day, get your food, and that's all you need. And then the rest of the time you do what you want, or you could work all day every day for some big company trying to get ahead. And the 40-hour work week seems like it's this kind of like settled upon thing where people at some point said like, look, we don't want to work 16 hours a day every day. And then there's unions and whatever, and this seems like where we're settled on. It's been like this for a while.
Well, just to further clarify, you can find jobs where you work a limited amount of time, but you don't get benefits, and the money isn't good. So you're incentivized to not do that.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's true. We are talking about a sort of in these days an increasingly privileged thing to have a permanent, steady 40-hour-a-week job. Not everyone. It's less and less that. You're right to point that out at the start.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is like, is this a? I remember seeing some stats recently enough about the amount of hours Americans work. We're Canadians here. We're in a government town, which we've mentioned many times. So we are in that, in particular, 37.5 hour work week. Is that the norm? Like in the States, is it the same thing, or is it like 50? Is it a higher amount, and it's just that we're in this bubble where we think it's 40 hours a week?
I think it's a pretty generalized thing. It's like there's massive exceptions to this rule. We have a good friend of ours who was a guest on the show a long time ago, Breck, who's a lawyer, and he works, I think, often 70, 80 hours a week because he's a lawyer, and that's what lawyers do. So it's like they go outside the norm of the 40-hour work week because that's the way that profession, the culture of that profession is like that. And there's a lot of other professions that are like that too, but a lot of the kind of like large bulk work, if you can get in with a big company where you can have some stability, or in with the government, oftentimes it's the around 40-hour a week. And because I don't know that it's like, is Canada like this? I'm like, I'm sure lawyers in the States also work 80 hours a week, and some people have unionized jobs in the States and they work 9 to 5. Look, Dolly Parton saying this 9 to 5. That's the 40-hour work week. I think it's pretty common in the States and in Europe too. So Europe, you always hear Sweden. Is it Sweden being like they went to a 6-hour work day or something like that?
So I don't know if that's just like fake news. I think before.
Because one thing that's really annoying to me about this topic is just the it's like the abstract framing of it in a way. It's like, so it's like, oh yeah, 40-hour work week. So is that good, bad, or bullshit? Okay, let's say it's bad because that's too much work for the amount. Like, really, we should have more time off. Then it's like, is a 30-hour work week, is that good, bad, or bullshit? Oh no, is it the 20-hour work week? Is that good, bad, or bullshit? And it's like right now the only reason that we're talking about 40 hours is because that's currently the status quo, right? Like that's
that makes sense though.
No, well, I guess it does, but it's just like, I mean, and we're talking about it in the mindset of people who do work 40 hours. So like if you said generally people will say it, mostly if you ask them outside of any of their personal context, would you prefer to be working more working more of your life or have more leisure time? They would say they would like to have more leisure time for the most part. If you frame it in that way and don't frame it like, do you want to have no money or whatever? Um, in which case, like, if let's say for instance the whole society changed like it did. It used to be like, as Mike pointed in Victorian days, like way more hours, right? If all of society changed and we were working 30 hours instead of 40 hours, like that was the thing. I think that then when we would talk about it, and then maybe we would be all railing about the 30-hour week, and then it'd be like, oh, 20, like, and then if in the future then we're only working 20 hours a week, we would probably be, railing. It's easy to rail about like, oh, we got to work too much. We always got to work too much. I feel like, well, it's sort of like an endless hole that you're in. You're always going to be complaining about how much you have to work. Nobody wants to.
I guess that's true. I mean, the reason so yeah, I mean, I lean initially towards being like the 40-hour work week is too much, is what I tend to think, because I'm the type of person who likes to do other things that in theory could be work as well, but you can do them for yourself. Like I would like to spend more time in the summers growing food that I could eat. I would do that if I had more time. I mean, at the moment I don't work at all. I'm an unemployed person at the moment. Or the other way to look at it is I'm a stay-at-home dad, which is the constantly employed person.
You're a podcaster.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. That's an hour every 2 hours every 2 weeks. But I guess the way I think of it is like, it's like when you wake up in the morning, I feel like you have X amount of energy, right, to devote, especially mental energy, to devote to something. And then usually the first thing you do, aside from like eat breakfast and get dressed, is you go to work. And then you spend the next 8 hours there, giving them kind of like your best energy and stuff like that throughout the day. Most of us get more tired as the day goes on. Then you come home from work, you commute back home, a bit tired, now you're hungry again. You do these things. There's a couple chores need to be done. And yes, this is better than someone who lived in the Victorian age. It's just like you just always constantly work. It's better, but it's kind of like you give away all your prime mental energy to someone, and it sort of sustains your life. But I feel like it's just enough so that you have free time for like leisure, but not for other endeavors. You know what I mean? So like you got the weekend to kind of like recharge and do fun things, but oftentimes I feel like I'd like to do this or this other thing, or I'd like to learn something else or explore something else, and I feel like the 40-hour work week kind of prohibits you from ever actually sort of expanding your base. It's just like once you get it eats most of your productive time, and the rest of it's taken up with sort of family stuff, chore stuff, and whatever. And I guess and the bargain is like, well, that's pretty good. You get to live a pretty good life if you have one of those good jobs. You got food on the table, you got your bills paid, and all this stuff. But it's like I just feel like 8 hours every day is like it's all your good time.
I think there's some nuance to this a little bit, and because I think there's two types of job. I think you put jobs in two categories. I think you can put them in jobs that you were your number one choice in life and that you prefer long term and that you're okay with doing. So, for example, if you're an artist and you just want to paint, let's say painting, concept artist for films or storyboarder, you want to draw, like if you have, let's say, that thing, and then you are employed in such a way that you work 40 hours a week, but that's what you wanted to do, and you're good with that, you do it 50 hours. If you have deliverables and crunch time, you'd even work a bunch of time and then take time off later, then you're golden. Like this conversation is like, well, it's like that, but I like what I do, no problems there. But I think there's a very large percentage they have to get a job and maybe they aren't good at focusing, like I'm not, or whatever, for whatever reason, you're in a position where you don't have quite what you expected as a job. Most of the people I know work jobs like that they're and then they work there so long that it's like they become the job, but it's not where their true heart is, and they have to do it. It's not like they have a ton of options. Those ones are the ones that don't want to work 40 hours a week, because maybe someone works in client services, let's say, would spend as much time as possible, I don't know, enriching the cultural fabric of Canada and the internet large. And we're not speaking about anyone specifically here on the show, but, you know, I would like to earn a reasonable living. Oh, I just used the word I've blown the gaff or something. But, you know, I'd happily work 20 hours a week for a much more than what I'm currently making now, so I have time to enrich the world around me with the things that I make, you know. And so that's where I think it's kind of bullshit that 40 hours is just this blanket thing that should apply to everybody, because there are jobs in this world that people don't want to do, that we're going to have to get some sucker to do, but it's asking too much, I think, to make them do it 40 hours a week. Because at least if they're gonna do something shitty like pick up the city's trash, like, why would I make them do it all fucking week long? Like,
yeah,
like, you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of cruel. Like, that's bullshit.
I think about that all the time, but that's an interesting, because I agree wholeheartedly with that point, because there are shitty jobs no one wants to do. And when I was a kid, I used to want to be a garbage man, because I always saw them riding on the back of the truck, and I was like, man, that's the awesome job.
I wanted to pump gas. I wanted to pump gas because I thought the numbers on the gas pumps were cool. I love numbers.
It's funny when you're a kid. And the thing is, so now that I'm an adult,
to be a fireman.
Fireman, what a cliche. So I still see the garbage man, and that's a super important job, but it's a very hard job, and the pay's not that great for the amount of work it is. But it's like, the thing is, like, I would often, and I really believe this, I would be a garbage man happily right now. One day a week I'd do a full day, 2 days a week, even 2 days a week I'd do that. And I wouldn't, it doesn't bother me. I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, that's below me or beneath me. I really don't feel like that way. It's very physical work. I like physical work. But do I want to do it 40 hours a week? No, because I want to do something else, right? And I feel like that about almost everything. And I mean, I'm like that. And I realized that the term recently is called a polymath. And it's just like, I think most people are this, really, is that you have a lot of interests. You have a lot of interests, you can be good at a lot of things. Most people are good at more than one thing, but we've got everything down. And I feel like the 40-hour work week is part of this, because it's divvied up in this way that, like, well, you get paid to do one thing and everything else you don't get paid for. And it's just like, so, but that sucks, and it's boring, you know, and it makes your life kind of a bore, where it's like you got this one thing that eats up the majority of your waking hours when you're not doing maintenance stuff on yourself. And that's what you'll have to be all about. You know, people ask you, what do you do? And that's
but like you wouldn't even have to do something else. Like, honestly, contributing to society for 20 hours a week over someone who does it 40 plus, what's the difference between those people? It's like we're just indoctrinated to think 5 days a week, 40 hours a week, that's a work week. And you know what? If you want to do it, do it. But let's not. The problem is, when you work less than that, unless you have some kind of lucrative sweet deal that you finagled, you're not making enough money, you know, in many cases.
And you guys have, like, I've agreed with, you've gone back and forth a bit here, but I've agreed with mostly everything that you've said up to this point. Now I'm feeling there's a little bit of conflation of stuff, because I don't think that, like, a 40-hour work week and the ability to work, like, if you could work a job 10 hours, 10 hours, 10 hours, 10 hours, it'd still be a 40-hour work week. There'd be 4 different jobs. Yeah. Like, in Mike's scenario, it's not necessarily, I understand how society is set up now to discourage perhaps that choice. But what Bo was saying earlier about the idea of, like, the two types, like, so you've got the idea is that, like, you could potentially do whatever you want. Nobody has a gun to their head saying that you have to do these things, and people can start their own businesses. They can follow their own interests. Like Bo does the other podcast that we talked about in the preamble with Scott Johnson, who is a guy who is a cartoonist, who is a
podcast. HeroesforYou.com. Continue.
Who does multiple podcasts, but also does cartoons, does all sorts of organizes a convention, does all these different things, and has luckily, well, I don't want to say luckily, has due to time, effort, energy, and perhaps sacrifice at one point, gotten to to where he is. But otherwise, if you're like having to sell yourself in terms of time, being like, okay, I need money to do these sort of things that I want to do in life, or now I have chosen, and not everybody chooses, and I recognize this, to have children and this sort of thing, and now I have bills that I have to pay. So Mike, I think, has used a term at one point, or somebody has, about something slavery, like chosen slavery, like you're choosing to
wage slavery.
Yeah, yes, exactly, wage slavery. So you're essentially choosing in that sense to for the quality of life to sell 40 hours of your time per week or whatever. And I know you both know this lady who lived near me growing up, who chose to be a poet, Linda, and she's she's, I've seen her.
I went to school with Linda. We both did.
And she has been successful as far as a poet is able to be successful in Canada.
Yeah.
And so financially, that's not tremendously successful, obviously. But she's made that chosen, the chosen sacrifices. There are sacrifices that most people, don't make for their passions. And it brings me back to sort of the first thing, which is like that I said about the 40-hour thing and the arbitrariness thing, because it's like, yeah, it sucks to have to work a job for anybody, like for money that's not something that you're generating yourself, that you're not your own boss, that you're not creating it. It doesn't come from your interest. You're a hired gun. You're an employee. You're whatever. Like, that always kind of sucks. So, like, does it suck at 40 hours? Yeah, it sucks at 40 hours. Does it suck at 30 hours? Yeah, probably suck at 30 hours as well. Oh, you would have, potentially more time available to do other things. But the ideal thing, like for me, I feel shitty about having to work in general. Like, I would be happily unemployed if I had the money to subsist for me and my family, right? Like, I'd be more than happy not to work. And that's not always a cool thing to say. It sounds lazy or whatever. But like, I would have a ton of stuff to keep me occupied. I would be more than happy with that. But at the same time, like, society, there's requirements. Mike mentioned garbage and other things. There's requirements to make society run right now. I'm hoping that in the future that those requirements will be lessened by AI and progress and stuff like that. There's got to be a sweet spot. People need to work to deliver these services and to deliver, to make society run. Is 40 hours still that sweet spot? I don't know. It was for a while.
Yeah, and I think it's increased. I think in a lot of ways it's going up again. That amount of work that people are doing, either because of they're working low wages and then they're working more than 40 hours on multiple jobs or things like that, or they're trying to get ahead and impress the higher ups, so they're working, they're careerists and they're putting in 50, 60 hours a week because they want to get ahead. They want to have the power and the control and whatever. I heard this thing. This is just sort of a perspective, and again, it comes back to this, like, in some ways we've lost, like, as a society, we've traded, when we've lost a traditional lifestyle, whether it be subsistence farming or living off the land, all these things which are extremely foreign to us, like us three people and pretty much everybody these days. We've traded that for, say, security, and so, well, that's, I don't know what, comfort, maybe, a few things like that. But I heard this guy talking on the radio. I wish I could remember his name because I meant to look him up. But he was a very interesting guy, and in some ways had a lot of standard success. He was a Harvard-educated lawyer, and I think he was a judge in Manitoba. And he was a First Nations guy, so an Indigenous person, and he'd grown up on a trap line. And so he said so I heard him talking about this, and his mother had always made it very important that he know how to work a trap line. And he said his attitude as a young person, and this happened all the time, was that he always felt secure he quit all kinds of jobs because people said, you got to do this, you got to do this. Like, meh. And he said it, the way he said it was that he's like, I don't need this job. I know how to live. And it really resonated with me because I'm like, man, I don't know how. All I know how to do is get a job and buy shit at the grocery store. That's all. I can't do what he does. But he had no stress around that. He apparently did this. He would just be like, quit a job, like whatever. I'll just go set up a trap line. I'll be fine. And he could do that. Now that's a lifestyle that's probably not appealing to a lot of people, but also just because we're far removed from it. The point being, there's a freedom in that too. That really, I was like, wow, we don't have that anymore. We're all, and coming back to the wage slave thing, is it like we're born without knowledge of how to survive without it. So, we can't undo what we've done, having the world structured as it is, but we have lost something with. And when Crofton, you mentioned progress, I think about this oftentimes. Like, what's progress? Like, is it like having better shows on TV and watch on the weekend and awesome internet speed? Is it? Or and it's like Crofton's muted. He's going.
Yeah, he wants to go off.
No, it's standing on each other's shoulders and moving forward, developing things above and beyond what previous generations have been able to develop. And
I guess so, but I mean that is true to some extent. But like, for example, we're talking about jobs and things you're saying, like what to contribute to society, and it's like there's all things like the garbage man. We need the garbage man. Some people say we need doctors. We need the garbage man, for the record, more than we need the doctors, actually, if you want to stay healthy. But we don't value them the same way. Yeah. And then things like of the jobs that have been created in the past like 20, 30 years, things like insurance and financial services have gone through the roof. And it'd be like, we were talking about like, oh, to keep society going, it's like, is this like really? Are those essential things? Like, that's a massively growing thing. People selling financial products to people. And I just like, I feel like things have gone a bit off the rails.
But yeah, just to your point about the garbage men, and this is where I get with the 40 hours a week and sort of like, is that we don't need the garbage men. We need garbage disposal. That's what we need, right? We don't need it. It sounds cold, but like we need our garbage to be picked up, transported, crushed, compact, disposed, gotten rid of in some way, shape, or form. Does it have to be some guy picking up my can and throwing it in the back of a truck? No, it absolutely does not. And in fact, you ask what is progress? To me, it is finding ways to make those jobs redundant. And people are
so Crofton against robot life partners, but not against robot garbage men. Duly noted.
Yes.
But is that true of all jobs then?
Pardon me?
That's true of all jobs.
Yes, exactly. Using that as like an example, like to get to the point where we don't have to work. All those sort of services I said earlier in terms of like, ideally I don't want to have to work. Like, again, for me personally, I don't want to have to work. If I can get a bunch of robots to work for me, non-sentient, not service substitute life partners, Bo.
Sure. Okay.
To work for me, to do these jobs, to deliver the services. I say robots, but any sort of automation,
a self-driving car with an automated crane that picks up the garbage and puts it in the self-driving car.
Could be anything. Could be anything. What? Sure. And people get and Mike's mentioned this before. And people get really like their dander up when they think about jobs being destroyed, like the creation of jobs and the creation.
But let me hang on. Thing. Oh, I don't want to interrupt because I know you're going somewhere. But the people. Okay. The people programming.
You can add right after. I just want to say about about job creation is like I'd like to see job deletion with the idea, but then that job deletion, like when the automation of society, the creation of all these services, that has to then snowball into people like not needing to work as much, because if there's less required jobs, if they're being automated more often, then people should not have to work as much, and that doesn't mean not get paid as much. It means like we and then we get into conversations about like citizens' wages and all that,
Basic income and stuff.
yeah, basic income and all that sort of stuff. Sorry, Bo.
I was just gonna say, I'm normally all in on sci-fi ideas to solve problems like robots and things of that hive minds, things of that nature. But the thing that I keep thinking when we like, oh, let's get a robot to do it, it's like, well, at some point in this production fabrication process, there is a human working 40 hours a week, whether it's the AI programmer or, the prototype designer, the engineer, whatever, who knows. Like, there's going to be somebody, they're still going to be working 40 hours a week, and that's still going to be the standard. I think in this particular case, it has to do with how we treat one another, which is we're always looking to push people down in various ways, and it has to do with companies who can get away with saying, yeah, 40 hours of work is reasonable. We can expect that as a standard, and it gets the support of government because there's lots of stuff codified in employment law and things of that nature indicating that that's what qualifies as full-time and things of that nature. Like you don't get the fact that a part-time worker doesn't get benefits, but a full-time worker does, and certain rights, like those definitions I know are in law, in employment law, and it's and the point is that like it steeps every part of our culture, and we need to get away from it, and it has to do with an attitude shift about what we can do for people. Like I go back to the garbage man, very important job. Let's say we never invent a better way of transporting garbage than a garbage truck and two guys roughing it out in the night together, being friends. A man and a woman, or two women. I'm being gender biased, but at the end of the day, I don't. It's almost like it's like wishing ill on somebody to be like, I hope you have to pick up garbage and drive these roads and do the same thing for 40 hours. And it's not that I want someone to have three different jobs and do three different things. Is that I want them to serve society, my society, our society, in a positive way that also doesn't mean they have to just like want to kill themselves some days because it's Wednesday, hump day. Hump day. What a fucking terrible concept. It's like, oh, I've been here so long, it's Wednesday, but it's so far away from them. Why do we do that to ourselves? Good gravy.
Can I give you kind of like an example? Like, because I like I said, I'm unemployed right now, and I live this kind of interesting mix of work in the sense that like I'm lucky enough to have my mom come and take care of my kid in the mornings, and I've been working on my house. I do renovation work, right? So I'm fixing up my house. I know how to do a bunch of this stuff, so I do that from like 9:30 till about 2 or 2:30. So that most days, about 3 or 4 days a week. So it's not a lot of work. And then in the afternoon, I do childcare. I look after my kid, which is work. Anyone who hasn't done it doesn't know that it is work. That's why people pay daycare people, and that's why when you do it, you feel exhausted, and I do it. So those are the work things I do. Now, because it's flexible, so I'm not doing 40 hours of childcare or 40 hours a week of. I have this mix, this sliding scale of time of when I'm available, whenever. So something that happens from that, like, so I live in a nice neighborhood, and I mean that in the sense of community. I got really nice neighbors and friendly people, and I got this one neighbor. He's the head of some NGO or something like that. Obviously he's a smart guy, whatever. Doesn't know much about home reno stuff, and he asked me a question. He was trying to do some work on his house. He's like, he's like, I'm trying to find someone to put in these window wells on his like basement windows. And I was like, well, that's not hard. Well, like, you could do that. And he's like, oh, I don't think I know how. I was like, well, I'll show you. And then so I probably gave him about 4 or 5 hours worth of my time where I showed him what to do. I said, buy this stuff at the store. I'm at the store. I picked him up a few things. He paid me back. And then I showed him what to do. Dig here, do this thing. And we did it, and he was extremely appreciative, actually. And he did most of it. But I kind of showed him how. And he felt pretty proud, and I felt really happy. There was no money exchanged. But that's an economic transaction that didn't happen, because he normally would have hired someone, and it probably would have cost $1,000 or something like that, or more probably, to do what we did. It cost him about $150. There was an economic transaction that happened in exchange of knowledge. everyone wants to make that about monetary exchange. Like, people guard their knowledge. Most contractors won't tell someone for free how to do something. I'm not a contractor. I just know how to do some of the stuff because I've researched it. So I told him that because it's community, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, he's a neighbor, and it's like, and I didn't feel like I felt good about doing it. I had the time to do it, so I didn't feel stressed about it because I'm not at work all day every day and getting home tired or whatever. So I tend to think, like, if we all worked like, 4 hours a day at some job that still allowed you to live a decent wage, and you spent the rest of your time, doing some light leisure activities and whatever, but also maybe just hanging out with your neighbors and whatever, you might learn stuff from them. You might do more work around your own house because you have a neighbor who's like, hey, why don't you do that yourself? And you're like, yeah, sure, I got 2 hours a day. I'll do that. That's now something you don't have to hire someone to do. And I just sometimes think that it's an inefficient way we've structured it, where it's like, I earn money at a job, and then I pay tax on that money. And then if I want to do something else, well, I don't have the time to do it myself. So I got to hire someone, and then I got to pay them sales tax on doing that work. Again, it's extremely inefficient. Whereas if you had the time and you could just do the work yourself, you'd eliminate being taxed on income that you had to spend again, and sales tax. It's like, it's just inefficient, I think, sometimes. And if you have the opportunity to do more things yourself, I think the economics actually could balance out. But that being said, you have to have that willingness to be like, to want to do different and varied things.
For sure. And I totally don't have a lot of that interest or willingness. I would just want to hire.
You say that, but I mean, you always say that, but you're like, you're more capable than you think.
Hang on. Your leverage wouldn't
but
be.
I don't have the interest.
Your leverage wouldn't be, Crofton, that you're going to show someone a well. But you do. The thing I'm taking away from Mike's story is that he did ultimately a good deed. He spent time with someone. He taught them something new, but he also made a friend, kind of. Had a good, So they did a thing together. This was a positive thing for community. And there isn't anything worse than someone who's worked 8 to 10 hours a day. They're in the worst mood ever and less likely to do these things. Like people's dispositions are worse off for it, I think.
Well, that's
like,
right. So
you would be able to maybe not do that, but I don't know. What kind of stuff do you have skills in? You have good social skills. Maybe someone's going to be toasting at a wedding, and you're a Toastmaster, and you'd be like, listen, let me sit down and help you write this thing, and you'd help contribute to the fabric of society. But no, you've got to work all day. I got to pick up my kid. I don't have time for this. Good luck. Go to this Wikipedia page and look up toasting. I can't help you.
I like how I'm a dickhead now because I would have to work all day, and then, now I'm a jerk.
You're less likely to spend that time because you're busy with your life.
Here's the deal. I agree. I'm not shitting on Mike's story. I agree with Mike's story. I'm shitting on your interpretation of it, which is that, like, work is like, it's like, oh, you have to go to work, so now you're in a bad mood all the time or whatever. And Mike, in his scenario, is like, I think it should be structured 4 hours in the morning or whatever. All of that is just like numbers. It's like, okay, this works for me or this works for whatever. And I get that, because again, I don't want to work. So the whole the whole argument of like, doesn't working suck? Aren't you in a bad mood when you come back from work? Yeah, guess what? I don't want to work. So I don't care about that work shit. I already don't want to.
See, that's so funny to me, because I really don't share that view.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, keep going.
That is totally fine. I just want my two things, like, this topic is a 40-hour work week, right? It's not work. It's not like, but the question is, and this is why I railed against the topic at the beginning, because it's just an arbitrary number associated with the work week. Well, it's arbitrary, and it's what we use right now. So here's the thing, and I know we don't do any Google. We don't do any Googling or research on this show, so I can't. I'm not Googling this, but this is stuff that I'm familiar with, and I don't have the references, so you'll have to check after. Number one is that the reason that we're at 40-hour work week now is due to the existence of unions. Okay, if we did not have unions, we would be working more as a society. The expectation would be that we would be working more as a society. Yeah. Unions have got it down to 40 hours currently in general as the status, as the norm, if you will. And that's why we're talking about it, because it is the norm. So the other thing I know is that science, like scientists and stuff, have been looking at this recently and concluded that your brain, you're getting diminished returns throughout X amount of hours of work during the week, and that 40 hours doesn't make sense, and that I think they, in the articles that I've seen, they're saying 30 hours. I'm not 100% sure is the magic number of getting your expertise and all that, but not then slowing down and actually almost being detrimental to the process. So there's a lot of science that has been conducted on this already that proves that in fact the 40 hours doesn't really make sense. So we're drawing a topic which is, I understand why it's what it is now.
It's the status quo.
It's the status quo. But the reason that we even enjoy it, because let's say that unions didn't exist and we drew the 70-hour work week, and that was the status quo. Well, then obviously we would be having a conversation right now about how that sucks, and how if we had much more time, we would be in better moods and we would be able to help our neighbors and all that sort of stuff. That would be the same with 70 hours. That would be the same with 60 hours. That would be, right now we're at 40 hours. I don't want to work. I would like to reduce it.
Let me. While you were talking, and I was listening, so don't get mad at me. But I whipped out a calculator, and
you were somewhat listening, but you were mostly doing work on the computer.
Hang on. No. I have a thing to say. All right. Points. I have a thing to say to help frame this. What the 40-hour? Okay, Crofton, good point. Companies would have us working infinitely, they would work us to the bone. And 40 hours is a very positive thing. But let's put things in perspective. Okay. Maybe I didn't listen to the end at all. You're giving me a look.
I didn't say that the 40 hours was a positive thing.
Before Bo tells us this thing?
No, but you kind of made listen to the second half of my thing.
She's going to hijack it.
Yeah, all right. This might support your thing, so just let me get it out, okay?
Go ahead.
All right. So 40 hours. Okay, so there's 160 hours in 7-day week. All right? And then, so 56 of those hours is sleeping time. That means there's 112 waking hours. So 40 hours is 35% of your wake time. Doesn't sound like a lot, but I know it takes me about an hour of travel time prep both ways to go back and forth from work. So for me, I'm counting it as 60 hours. So I got to travel. The point of going there and the travel, I have to count that in the 40-hour work week.
Hey, what are you getting at?
So the point is, the math is...
You're artificially inflating it.
I'm not, because that travel time is part of the work.
You could work right next to your house, or make it.
I can't. I can't.
A lot of people are stuck in a commuting traffic.
We drew 40-hour work.
The reality. Look, I live close,
and that's part of it.
I live a 10-minute drive away, but I don't own a vehicle. I have to take a bus, and beggars can't be choosers. I can't just choose to work at some arbitrary place next to me. And most people,
Rob, to be fair, this is a huge problem for a lot of people.
Most people travel 30 minutes to an hour, some people even more, to get their 40-hour work weeks. So that's 60 hours a week. That's 53% of your awake time. That is the majority of your time if you have an hour each way on there. That is a lot. That is a huge percentage of any person's time. That's half your life every week spent doing something you don't want to do.
You inflated it.
I haven't conflated it.
You inflated it.
I didn't.
Well, commuting is a thing.
Commuting is part of the requirements necessary.
But Jessie commutes. It takes her 10 minutes walk each way, and then
that's
she's at work. That's
fortunate for her. I'd venture to guess that's not the majority of people.
I know that's some percentage of people, but Bo is talking about it how it's the majority of people's lives or whatever.
Most people I know travel 30 minutes to an hour to work. I'm just saying you're adding that on, and you're not working at that time. You can do whatever you want while you're commuting. That doesn't. No, I can't do whatever I want. I have to go to work.
A long commute for a while.
I've got to shower. I've got to prep for my day. On my day off, I might not need to shower or do the things that I need to do that are.
I'm just saying, you could be working 4 days of 10 hours each and do less commuting. There's a lot of different conflating the commute, which I think, and where we work and all that, with the exact hours that you work in a week. To inflate,
it's part of working.
It's to inflate the number. It's you're now.
It's not to inflate the number. It's to provide an accurate representation of the amount of time I spend in service to the job, which is not only the 40 hours it's comprised of.
Okay.
And yeah,
that's
that's
true.
I think the way to frame it. So for me, anyways, it's 53% of my week, and to me, that's very greedy on the part of
Well,
the society that
especially
asked me to do this.
especially when you factor in the fact that like that other free time. So even whatever Bo's estimate is, sleeping's a good third of all your time, and then but there's all these other things like cooking food and making food and say getting groceries are just things you have to do, right? It takes time, cleaning your house, you just add all that stuff in and you have a small slice of like free of time that is free. And it's like, and again, just to contrast this again away from the 40-hour work week, say like when people had family run farms or things like that, and that was like the predominant sort of economic force. Was it people produced a lot of what they need, they sold a bit of what they had extra, and then they were able to purchase things with that to keep them going. Now those people's work lives, some people say like, oh, they worked harder than us, and that's like true and not true. It's like at planting time they worked long hard days, at harvest time they worked long hard days, but in the winters they didn't work that much. Keep the animals fed, you have a lot of free time, and in some parts in the midsummer too. So it's like this ebb and flow of work, and I feel like that's part of the full 40-hour work week that appeals to me, because it's not just 40-hour work week, it's 40-hour work week like 52 weeks a year or 50 weeks a year for your working career. Like if you get a good job and you just keep moving up, it's like it's that for 30 years. Where it's like if you run a farm, it's like you have you kind of flow with the seasons, you have ebbs and flows, you have time of hard work, time of leisure, time. It's a.
But
nice,
that's a different type of job, right?
It is, but it's not a 40-hour work week job, and that's what we're talking about. So, I'm just. Well, right now we don't have the option. We don't have the option of having a family run farm.
Yes, there's a lot of options that people have that choose not to have that. Like when you gave your example earlier about the guy with the trap line, you made it sound like it would be impossible for you to know how to run a trap line. You could go and get trained in that and get that information. Like, I mean, I'm just saying, it's just like you're saying like, oh, I have to. I get the wage slave thing, and I get setting yourself up where you have to go to work. You feel like you have to do this many hours, but choosing the location of where you work, choosing, who you work for, who you're selling your time to, all of that is like, there is human agency as well. It's not just like these, and I recognize how fortunate I am to be a white privileged male in a great society that has a ton of choice. I totally get that. So like for me, that's why I keep circling back to the kind of, it's easy to be like frustrated at society. Oh, we have to work 40 hours a week. Well, no, technically you work for how much you're willing to work for the amount of pay you're working at, right? Like to a certain extent. That's why that's why when numbers are like, that's why Bo's point was well made, which is how much time he takes. But like, to me, it's like, okay, well, you've chosen to work a job at this place that has this much commuting time.
And right? I guess why I find this sort of stuff frustrating is, and this is quite personal, and I'll contrast it against what you said. And I know this is also how Bo feels too, where you're like, I don't want to work. You're like, I don't like work. If I didn't have to do it, I wouldn't do it. Because that's not how I feel. I like working. You guys both know me. I'll dig a hole for someone if they want to. I don't care what it is. I'll do all kinds of things. I really enjoy it. I like it. Lots of types of work too, and mostly I just don't want to always be doing it, the same thing. And it's like, so it's one of those things where it's like, if and Bo's told me this before too, where it's like, he said one is like, given my druthers, so if he had to, like, he was all set up, he'd play video games day long. And he'd like it.
I stream it for people, and that'd be my work. So I like working too.
Yeah, well, look, if it's for like, I mean, you can say make it work, but even say you didn't have to do that, you could just play video games all day. Sure. And he said, like, if I could do that, that's what I'd do, which is essentially consume entertainment products and engage in leisure activity. But honestly, for me, that is not what I would do. I would do some of that because everyone needs leisure and entertainment.
Or
I would
travel or whatever.
Whatever. I do some of it, but I get bored with that. Like, I would want to go help my neighbor. Like, oh, they're putting in a patio. Okay, I'll help you for a few days. Like, so for me, I find it frustrating because I don't have this idea in my head that, like, if I didn't have to work, I would just watch movies and be entertained by something all day. I really feel like I'd be like, oh, what can I do? I feel like I'd get involved in community projects. I would volunteer
okay,
like mental
just to-
time. This is how I feel it
But
would be.
to clarify, just when I say it about the not working thing, like, because what you're talking about is actual work, but like, that artistic creativity that is like, it's technically work, like, develop. I used the example of Scott Johnson earlier on, right? Like, so he draws cartoons and he does podcasts and he does like I would to say like I don't want to work, like I would really, if I had all the time in the world I wouldn't work. That's probably not exactly true. It's just the type.
Exactly, I feel like that.
Yeah, the type of work is would be much more of a certain type or creative or whatever. And I don't even know that necessarily is true. Maybe you're right. Maybe I would just travel and play video games all day. That's very, it's very possible as well. So, but I know that generally what I associate with work, anything from manual labor to office labor to whatever labor, as soon as the word labor is there, that doesn't sound, even labor of love sounds painful.
Whereas, like, I don't know, I can enjoy all those things. It's just like it's the bulk of it, and when it dominates most of your good time, where you're alert, you're focused, you have energy, it takes almost all of it. And I just feel like for me, if I had more of that time, I would do other things, and they would be productive, I think, to society and to myself, and and I feel like you don't have that opportunity. But one other interesting thing, and back to that guy who said the guy who ran the trap line said, I know how to live. I really think that was really stuck with me, that. And you were talking about automation and like, look, we don't need a garbage man, we need the garbage to be picked up by something or someone. And then all these jobs could be automated. And the problem with that, because I'm like, yeah, it sounds great, except what that guy said, we don't know how to live anymore. So it's like if that happened and there was no jobs, our whole society structured on it, we'd all be like, and then that's why people talk about things like basic income, which I wouldn't mind having as a topic on the show, because in some ways I'm like, well, what is that? That's just propping up a weird system where we all have to be engaging in this commercial transactions in order to prop the thing up. It's like a giant Ponzi scheme, because it's like, it sounds great to be like, oh, if we could have automation and we could all work a little bit on maintaining these automated systems, great. But that's not what's likely to emerge, because we don't know what to do. We don't know how to pay people good wages to do little work. We don't know how to do it. We only know how to remunerate people who have extremely, specific expertise in something, or are able to do grunt labor at low wage for X amount of time. So with this automation thing, I'm like, sounds promising, except like I've not seen anything materialize except like, let's just give people money out and get them to continue buying shit to prop everything up. So like, again, like we've forgotten how to just live. We only know how to have wages and then consume things with the wages. That's it. That's all we know. And that's the basis of 40-hour work week. And I mean, to your point, also just about
basis of any work week.
Well, any work, yeah, you're right. Any work week. But I also do think there's something to be said that I think human beings need work to some extent. And by that, I mean structure. I mean, feeling like you're doing something valuable to your community. Everyone needs that. And that's why I feel like most people, if they had more time, wouldn't just, watch movies all day. They would do a bit of that and then they'd do something else, because we need to feel valued. But so I think with your point about like, what's in a productive amount of time, that the 40-hour work week is one of like, yeah, unions whittled that down. Apparently, I heard it was Henry Ford who kind of got the 8-hour workday started, because he was like, oh, people are useless after 8 hours.
It's 48-hour. It was like 48-hour work week.
Yeah,
before,
it might have been
so
higher than.
Yeah.
And that was because that was repetitive task stuff, but especially with mental stuff. Like I know when I'm doing office work, like my brain is dead at 2:00, and I can prop it up with coffee, and then I can get a second win around 4:30 or something. But I'm like, man, this is wasted. I'm good in the morning, for that kind of mental work. So it's like, would it be more efficient? I often think like when I did have the office job, if they had just let me leave at 2:00 every day, they'd get the same out of me, except they'd say, okay, but we're going to dock you 20% of your pay or 25% of your pay. And then I'm going to be like, oh, F that, because that's the problem of the 40-hour work week too. And what you were getting at, I agreed with what you're saying. It's like, what is that?
But I suck in the morning, right? So I suck in
yeah.
the morning, and the time that you're talking about is like, so I'm slow to start in the morning, or I'm not as effective, and then I'm more effective in the afternoon or whatever. So like, and
That's also a
now,
good point. I mean,
but now I'm at the point where it's like in a career where I have a certain control over like my workload schedule and that sort of thing. So I can set myself up for success that way. But as society, and this is something that I'm sure Bo would rail against, because he hates it when people aren't treated as individuals, or the individual is not like but for society to run and to have been done as collectively as possible, they're just like, look, it's 7.5 hours a day between this and this, because this is when daylight is. Some people are better at this time, some people are better at that time, or whatever. But like, it's got to be uniform for everyone, and that's what it is. So like, you're better in the morning, I'm better in the afternoon. I mean, like, that's the structure. So I'm not so much as opposed to that as I am the idea, in I get what you're saying about the pay, about the income, and the problems with it right now. But like, let's say all jobs, we keep going to garbage men, but let's say doctors, like there's that Matt Damon movie where like they had the machine that sort of heals you or whatever. Like, it just detects you have cancer and then heals you. Elysium, I think it was. And so, like, let's say all doctors are replaced by, yes, Bo's right, you still need people, but instead of needing like a zillion garbage men, you have like one or two people and then the rest can become like polymaths like Mike, or there can be university that's whatever. Like, if you're spitballing a utopia, you can do whatever you want, and people they'll have more time to learn how to run a trap line, Hodgins, than they would if they're working the 40-hour
we're not
work
going
week.
back to that.
So, well, I'm just saying it's like, with like railing against the automation of jobs, and it's the thing where we've talked about artificial intelligence and all that sort of stuff, and I've realizing we're always moving forward, that we can't necessarily move back, that as part of that moving forward, a lot of jobs need to become automated, and that means looking at the entire way that we structure our society, down to the amount of hours that we
but what it'll probably be is just the shift of work, like a lot of these revolutions have provided before, where it's not that you work, and so far it's been more work. Like when the Industrial Revolution happened, people worked more than they did before it, and we couldn't go back after that. And it's like, and the unions you whittled that down, and that's good, but those unions are being undermined and they're crumbling, and once they're gone, we're relying on the goodwill of companies to keep that going. And that goodwill, once the power is out of labor, and with stuff like Uber and Airbnb, essentially allowing, like, they're able to bust unions because they just don't operate in that way. And the danger of companies like that are ones where it's like, there's no way for people to organize. So right now we rely on the goodwill of companies that's been beaten into them by hard-fought labor strife. But once the unions are gone and people can't organize, and everything's like Uber, this online platform where you just, I get a little contract here, it's going to be gone, and exploitation is going to go back up. And the automation thing, it's like, yeah, it's going to happen, but it's going to benefit, like the Industrial Revolution did, some people who are on the top, and people on the bottom are going to be like, I thought of that. There's a Simpsons episode where Bart goes to like cadet school or something, and at the end they're like, "You've all graduated." They're like, "Of course. By the time you get to be soldiers, the fighting will be done by advanced superhuman robots, but it will be your job to maintain and service those robots." And it's like, that's true, because like that's what's all going to happen. It's like, yeah, it's going to be great. This automation be great for some people, and it's other people are just going to be like doing the, when the garbage truck that picks up your garbage comes in, someone's got to like fix it, refuel it, like, change the parts on the robots. Like, it can't be always a circular.
That'll be done by other robots for sure, though.
Anyways, I'm just saying things will shift, and it's like, I agree with you, and like, yeah, there needs to be like a rethinking of things, but that is not happening anywhere. Like when you see political discourse, like it's not even on the radar. It's just like, let's get more jobs. And
that's a part of like the way people look at things. right now is that hours worked is like, especially I hate pointing at the States, but it really does feel like more than hours worked is like a badge of honor. It's like, oh, you work. Oh, it must be nice to work 37.5 hours a week. I worked 80 hours last week, and with the idea of you like tap them on the back, be like, good job, man. This guy really works hard. Like, and it's the same with just having jobs in general, like being like, okay, you've got to. So like if the jobs were automated, like it's there would have to be, it has to be done, everything has to be done collectively. And again, like it's tough looking at the States with their current government and knowing it's only a flash in the pan of like larger human history, and that things will move along, but it's hard to be positive about where things are moving in that regard. It feels like it would move to a 50-hour week before it would move to a 30-hour week, though you see like Scandinavian countries who are obviously much more seriously looking at the shorter weeks. It feels like we run long. I don't know, but what's the time on this?
We've won pretty long. It's time for verdicts for the most part.
Okay.
But you guys have a lot to say, and I want you guys to get it out. So, is there anything else that anyone would care to add to that?
I feel like there is, but I'm gonna just stop.
It's a rabbit hole when you really think about it. Like, think about the types of topics that we've talked about, other than just like the concept of the work week itself. It's crazy. We've touched on so many things.
Yeah, that's true. All right, well, let's bring in the farm animals. I think we've gotten all the most important things we want to say out. So
have we? Probably not, but whatever.
Well, you got one more chance with the verdicts, so let's bring
let's bring in the verdicts.
Animals.
Yeah, I'm bringing in the animals. I mean, can't bring in verdicts.
I said order in the court.
I like to think there's three versions of Mike saying order in the court. Young
pretty
to
much.
old.
It's funny. I was really like, up until like 2 seconds ago, I was like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to say about this. And then it kind of crystallized in my brain. I'm like, no, I know. And that is the 40-hour work week is bullshit. And, part of that is like just trusting my emotions, and that it feels like bullshit. Like I don't like it. And I say it's not bad because it's better than a 16-hour day work or an 80-hour work week or whatever. It's better than that. I think it's worse than like seasonal work where you work a lot sometimes and you have leisure times at other times of the year. I think it's worse than that probably, but you might have less choice in that situation. I also think work is good. I think we should do work. You should want to do work, even crappy work, like picking up the garbage or whatever. I've cleaned toilets. I don't mind doing that kind of stuff. It doesn't bother me. But 40 hours a week worth of it, that's bullshit. I tell you. And how we get away from this, I don't know. I hope that the automation thing leads just to something like like what Crofton was touching on, that there is probably a sweeter spot of like, look, if people work like, 30 hours a week, 25 hours a week, whatever, and we learn how to pay people properly and not just say, this type of work is not valuable, so you get paid shit. And we have, in the province we live in, we have this current debate about the minimum wage and how it's going to destroy the world because we have to pay people more instead of exploiting them. Again, we have to learn how to pay people well for smaller amounts of work, and I think we're going to have to. I don't know where these conversations are coming, but right now, the current way of things, I think it's a bit bullshit, and that's where I'm going to stand.
Okay. I'm gonna bring up the rear, Crofton. You go. I haven't brought up the rear in a while.
Okay, no, that's totally fine. Just for the record, I know what Bo's going to say, and the one who did surprise me was Mike, because I thought he was going to say the same thing as Bo. Honestly, I am going to say what Mike just said. So the 40-hour work week is a bullshit for pretty much most of the reasons that Mike said, and for the like, it is arbitrary. I mentioned it earlier. It's where we stand right now as a society. There is literally science that says that we would be best suited, more productive, having a smaller work week. Part of me wanted to say bad because I wanted to hang kind of like society's obsession with work and the number of jobs created and all that sort of stuff on the like the concept of a 40-hour work week. But it's not necessarily linked, and it is much better than like you know, a lot of what people are working all over the world right now. So I mean, and we do have certain control over where we choose to work and where we're gonna do our 40 hours of work, and like how, you know, if it's rewarding to us and that sort of thing. So I mean, I recognize not everybody, there is a certain servitude element that's locked in there, and there are issues with the 40 hours being imposed sort of society wide as the right way to do things. So that's, you know, all of that kind of stuff is negative. It's better than a lot of things, but mostly I'm saying it's bullshit because it's completely like, it's just a number. It's really like, it's the number of hours that humans in Western society are considered to, are expected to work at an average job. And it's existed like this since the beginning of the 20th century. Prior to that, it was another number. And at one point, maybe we'll change it to another number, hopefully a lower number, because I always like to do less of the work than more of the work. So I mean, it's arbitrary. I mean, work, as Hodgin said, work is good, like it's needed, even if I don't think it's super fun. So I got to say, though, you know, 40-hour work week is bullshit.
All right. Okay. All right. So.
Oh, tell us.
It's my turn. All right. I gotta
tell us why the 40-hour work week is bad.
I'm gonna keep it simple. And Crofton sort of blew it for me. The 40-hour work week.
Eyes of no one.
Is bad. So
I play games.
I know that the 40-hour work week in a way is like kind of a victory in a certain sense, you know, because companies would have us working longer hours and things of that nature. But it's too much time. I think just when I whipped out the calculator and did the math, I was like, oh, yes, clearly I'm spending half of my time doing a thing that I don't prefer because I need to eat, I need to have a roof over my head. And while I don't begrudge contributing to society and being compensated for it and have a thing to live, I got more important things to do with my limited time on Earth than work a job I don't want. And Crofton might point out, Bo, work a job you do want. And I'd be like, I'm not qualified to work the jobs I want. And the ones I do want, well, they're not enough to sustain me because this right here is my favorite thing to do. I like making shows, putting shows together, talking with my friends, and people do enjoy listening to them. But it's not lucrative and it's not easy. So I have to work a job while I do the shit that I'm interested in. And 40 hours a week cuts into that time a whole lot. I, in fact, took on an opportunity recently that I had to bow out of because I realized there wasn't enough time to do it justice. And I was very upset. And it mainly has to do with the fact that I got to wake up at 7:30 in the morning. I got to shower. I got to travel to this dumb place 5 times a week. And I shouldn't say dumb place. The people there are great. I'm very happy to be working there. I like my job. And that's the whole point is that I don't want to have to go there 5 days a week. But in order to qualify for the salary and benefits that will enable me to make other things happen, I have to show up there for 40 hours plus all the traveling time. Over 50% of my life spent nurturing this thing that I don't love. So that's why I say it's bullshit. I should be able to do this for 20 hours and not 40. Screw you, society. It's bad. Done.
It's bad. It's funny you said bad.
It is funny, but because he said that's why it's bullshit. I mean, it's bad.
It's actually bad. But it's funny he's bad. But I'm like, I agreed with everything he said as well. He just came down a little harder on it, and know. I think Cross and I
both affects me very personally. All my life, I have to spend time.
It does.
With jobs.
It really does me too, Bo. But I also feel like, look, there's people that have, not that long ago that had it way, way, way shittier than us.
It's
true. That doesn't mean it
it's
can't
true.
be better. I always say that. That doesn't mean it can't be better. The people who say like, look, you could have had it shittier, so shut up. I want to say to those people, like, no, let's
a race to the
let's
bottom.
keep trying to make progress, people.
Yeah.
Okay, and if you have any ideas on how we can make progress, because we certainly didn't come up with any solutions on this episode, but we would love to hear your lovely solutions. So please drop us a line, send us an email. We'd love to hear from you. You can get in touch with us. Go to our website. That's the first place, goodbadbull.com, and you can find the ways to reach us there. Our email is goodbadbull@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. You can tweet us at goodbadbull on the Twitter, or you can like us on Terrible Facebook. And if you haven't subscribed to the show, please do. You can do it at Google Play or iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And we also have a Patreon account, patreon.com/goodbadbull, where some of our lovely listeners help keep the show going and pledge a few dollars here and there. And we really, really do appreciate it. And if you want to send a dollar to us sometime or not, you can do so. But you certainly don't have to. The show will always be free. But thank you very much to those supporters. And if anyone wants to follow each of us individually, let's start with Crofton. Crofton, where can people follow what you're up to?
They can find me tweeting away at Crofton Steers outside of my 40-hour sort of working window. I generally tweet in the evenings because I'm busy at work the other time.
Really? I feel like I've seen you tweet during work hours.
That's probably true.
And Bo, where can people follow the non-working related things?
You can find me at Bo Schwartz on Twitter. Best way to interact with me is there.
Bo has a lot of stuff going on Twitter that's not related to his 9 to 5, so that's and you can follow my tweets at ML Hodgins, though they don't really exist because I'm helping my neighbor dig a window well instead of being on the social media, I guess.
Oh, hey, do you guys see that? You guys see that up there? Just look up. Look up. There it's flying in.
The birds.
Damn birds!
I can't believe I looked.
We got an email. Hooray!
Yes!
We got
electronic mail.
Somebody delivered electronic mail to us, and I know we
Must
went
be a
long
bad
on the
omen.
show, but I really want to read this email because I'm so excited that
yeah.
we got an email.
Just do it. We're in for it now,
All right.
Bo.
So it's a bit long, but this is a show where we debate things out, so I think we're going to read the whole thing and see where it lands, all right?
Do it.
All right. So don't interrupt me too much so we can get through it, though, all right? So he says, "Hi, bullshitters."
Hi.
I like it. I finished episode... this is from Tony, by the way. Tony S. I finished episode 206, and I wanted to weigh in on how placement agencies and recruiters work in the U.S., at least in the engineering world. I've been working in the industry for 30-plus years, and I've used recruiters for both temporary and permanent positions. Everyone I've used has been professional and has worked with me very closely to determine my wants and needs in a position. I'm sure there are those that don't care about the recruitee, but their reputation is on the line here, so they might not be in business very long. Recruiters do not take a portion of your salary. Employers use recruiters and pay them a one-time fee based on the percentage of the salary of the recruitee, but not directly out of the person's paycheck. Some employers even have in-house recruiters that draw regular salary. This does not incentivize the recruiter to get you the best salary they can because it means more money for them. Oh, it does. Does not. It does. Get the best salary for their people. In general, taking a temp position nets you a higher hourly wage than a permanent position since the employer does not provide benefits. Good point. For some in the engineering world, a contract position is desired if their spouse carries the medical insurance. They can make more money over a shorter period of time and then take a month off once their contract expires. Just wanted to chime in. Really enjoy the show. Keep it up. There's
Cool.
a lot of
Who
good
was
stuff
that?
there.
Tony, you said?
It's Tony S. We don't know
Thank
where
you,
he's
Tony.
from.
That's
but
and I believe, I said it. I said they were good. So, now we know I'm right because Tony.
Yeah.
Tony's
I'll tell you, I'm glad for emails like Tony's just because, we, as I mentioned in this episode, we're like in this weird bubble city in a country that probably most of our listeners don't even live in. And so it's kind of like sometimes we don't know that stuff really. And so it's really, helps clear stuff up, and definitely placement agencies. We all spoke about sort of our personal experiences in this bubble, but I recognized at the time I was thinking like, man, this is probably not the reality for most people,
No, and it is interesting because it sounds like he's in the tech world, and it seems like a lot of stuff is a bit more with it in that sector to some degree. They got their short filings too, but like yeah, it sounds quite civilized what he's doing, and gives you a lot of choice too. You're like, oh, I'll ride the contracts for a while, and it's always good to have a different perspective. Thanks for writing, Tony.
Yeah, thank you. I thought it was great stuff. By the way, we didn't talk about contract work actually in terms of, you know, just seasonal work. Like, it doesn't affect the 40-hour work week. You just work when you work. But there are those. This engineering job sounds like people take gigs like that where they work a bit and don't work. So.
But it is funny because like I didn't mention that at all too. But I'm considering becoming a contractor once I'm done, when my kid goes to school. But then I'm just like, there's a stress associated with that too, where you're just like, oh. You always got to get another job. You always have a job for like, you know, a month or two, and then you don't have one again, and that's stressful.
And that's been like I've had a few offers from people because I do the intro music for this show and several other shows.
It's good that you're talented. Buddy.
I've had people make offers for that kind of stuff, and I don't think, you know, people can pay what would be required on a podcast level for it to be worth my time, which is unfortunate because like thinking about the possibility of doing music bits, you know, would be kind of cool, but I need to make $2,000 a month or something like that to like.
But exactly, and to bring this full circle, Bo, like it's like if you only worked like 15 hours a week and you made like good money, and someone was like, "Hey, you want to do this music for you? I can pay you a little bit." You'd probably be like, "Damn it, I love doing music. I'll do it."
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, exactly. But I have to be very choosy as a result because I can't go a month being like, well, I guess I didn't make my wages this month. Nobody wants podcast music.
You got to be pragmatic.
Yeah.
But to really bring it full circle, the people that offered those opportunities to him were offering them to him while he was running to a bathroom in a restaurant. And so he was like, I'd really like to. It's $2,000 a month. He's like, I'll be right back. And then he went and he peed and he came back and the guy wasn't there anymore. True story.
I feel bad. I walked by that guy on the way back, but I went back and said hi to him, took a picture. And
good for you,
just
Bo.
Like, you know.
Well, now when he comes and he listens to Good, Bad, or Bullshit, because I'm assuming everyone who listens to Core immediately then comes and listens to this show.
And then immediately unsubscribes when it's
he's like, wait, what are they talking about? Get back to talking about BlizzCon costumes.
No, the people here who come to the show love listening to the show. And let me tell you, you know, we are ramping up. More and more of you listeners are out there listening to the show. We see you there. It's kind of great having you here. They know it's a different vibe, but I'm telling you, there's some people stick around because they dig the Crofton and the mic.
I'm
we're pretty real on the show. We're real in a way that you don't get, I think, in a lot of other places.
Yeah, you don't get with those professional broad podcasts.
One day I'll be more famous than you, Bo. One day.
So we have this thing.
No, the best part about that is I bet you that day will never come, and Crofton will be forever bitter about it.
Crofton will finally get like some sort of huge famous thing, and I'll be like, I'm starring in a movie with Brad Pitt. See you, sucker.
I just would see it where I'm like living in like $1 million house, and Bo is like. And, you know, I've got like a butler and stuff, and I've like worked hard, and I've got, you know, 2 kids, and you know, everything is sort of like storybook. And then Bo comes off the street, and he's like smoking 8 cigarettes and looks disheveled. He's like, yeah, I'm living on the street now. Looks like you can take your laptop everywhere to podcast. And I'm like, haha, Bo. And then you're like, but I'm more famous than you. And I'm like, and then I start crying. It means nothing. And he's like, I'm going to BoCon. See you later.
BoCon. Yeah, BoCon 2020. I'll show up there. I'll be on the panel.
Oh my God.
Talking about Bo.
That's hilarious.
Actually, and then we can do Bo cosplay. I will come as Summer Bo.
Oh, nice.
That's cargo shorts.
I would come
some
as
kind of game-related
Bo.
T-shirt.
Or I might dress up as Bo, as he dressed up as for the Big Lebowski, Walter.
He won first place in that contest.
Yeah, I would dress up as Walter, but Bo Walter.
So you'd have to borrow some clothes from me, I guess. Because I lent him that. Like,
did you lend him the clothes?
Yeah, he's the one with the shit wardrobe for that purpose.
Didn't I have a bowling ball too? And you
yeah, it was all Mike. It was thanks to you that I had that cosplay at all. Like, I think I had the shorts and the
and I literally wore my pajamas and a bathrobe to be the dude.
You're a pretty good dude. You're a pretty good dude.
Just to be fair, though, we would have sold that stuff for money as like Bo Originals. Bo wore this. You would have put it online at that point, you know? because of his fame.
Yeah.
All right.
Good for Bo.
I'm
Yeah,
famous.
good for
I'm the most famous.
Crofton, you don't have to be bitter.
I'm not bitter.
Why do you want fame anyways? It's overrated. Bo told you so.
Yeah. See,
Yeah,
you have a family. I have nothing.
Yeah, Bo told you so, and he's famous, Crofton. So
You know what would be hilarious? We're at the restaurant. I'm running to the bathroom, and they're like, "Hey, excuse me, sorry. Do you know Bo?" And I mean, like, God damn it! I thought you were gonna ask about me. You're Crofton, right? I'm like, yes. Can you introduce me to Bo? I'm like, oh, it would kill me inside.
It would kill you.
That's pretty funny. All right. So live stream, thank you so much for hanging out. We're going to wrap up the show somewhere there. I asked my co-host to please find a good, graceful place to exit the show, but we forgot this week. And
I'll tell you, there was one. I gave it to you. It was the zinger about to bring it all full circle.
I know.
Something about peeing in the bathroom. Just end it there. Boom, your job's done. Also, I was looking a bit at the chat, and people were talking about like some of their work jobs, and I actually was curious. Bo, you man the chat channel. For anybody who's still in the chat, what types of jobs they work? I see some weird schedules in here. Like, what is it? Wicked Kitten saying like 11 hours a day or something, 4 days, 3 days.
The 4-3-4-3 kind of is sort of neat. I sort of like that. Depends how much.
It's 11 hours. Good.
Yeah, whatever. But it's not. It's only like 3 days and then I guess 2 days off between. Oh, I forgot to tell about the shittiest job I ever had. I worked at a camp when I'll just tell you guys. Did I ever tell you this? I worked at the Tim Hortons camp.
Yes, the Tim Hortons.
Oh my
camp.
God! What? At Tim Hortons camp?
You know when you go to Tim Hortons and there's like there'll be a poster on the wall. Once a year they give like all their coffee donations to to send kids to camp. I worked there when I was 16. That was the shittiest job ever. I got up at 5:30 in the morning, and started working right then. And then I pretty much worked nonstop because it was just like food prep and dishwashing. That's what I did there. It was that's why it was a shit job. Food prep and dishwashing all day long for like a couple hundred kids. And I finished at 8:30 or 9 every night, and then I went to bed and repeated. And that was 10 days on, 1 day off. And I did. It was the worst. And then this is the worst part. I was paid $1,000 for this summer.
Man!
And I did the math.
Canadian?
Yeah, and I did the math once, and it was like 80 cents an hour or something. And then so after like 3 sessions, I was like, "Fuck this!" Because I'm like, "Well, these kids, they're underprivileged kids." But I was like, "No, you know what? You know who's underprivileged right now? Me." I'm like, I'm quitting this job. It was exploitation wages.
Good for you. Good for you. Yeah.
I would have killed for a 40-hour work week then.
And one of the contexts for me in these conversations is I've never really had a shitty job. Like, and I know
you haven't known the pain of
I had the only time I had a shitty job at all was like I did telemarketing for a morning, and I got fired. I got fired at noon for telling somebody that they didn't need this thing. Yeah, I guess I wasn't clearly
whatever principles, man.
Cut out for it, but that's like a morning, so it doesn't necessarily count. But like pretty much all my other jobs are like day camp counselor, video game promoter, game master, government employee, and all my government jobs have been pretty sweet. So I mean, it's like it's kind of tough to complain.
Yeah, it is funny. Whereas like I know Bo's worked some shit jobs too, but like I've been a janitor. I've been a janitor, and I've literally dug holes.
I've been a janitor.
Yeah. My mom got you that janitor job, same as she got it for me.
God, I was there too long.
Yeah, I wash dishes. I know Bo worked at McDonald's.
Crofton,
maybe that's why you have such a terrible work ethic. You've never worked a real job.
Yeah, potentially.
I worked for refrigeration.
Clown Baby works civil engineering company, 8 a.m. to 4:30, but it's a 40-minute drive.
There and back? What does that mean?
40 minutes to it, 40 minutes
there,
back.
40 minutes back.
That blows. You need to move closer to work.
Yeah, Crofton said it's super easy to find some place next to you. The show today.
You also worked at Chuck E. Cheese, which I find funny.
Yeah,
because
that's a real job.
I've actually never been to a Chuck E. Cheese, but I saw commercials when I was a kid, and I always wanted to go. It was like because we got American TV at one point. I don't think there's any around here, but whatever.
I went incidentally to a Perkins restaurant. You guys ever been to a Perkins?
No.
I think it's an American chain. It was the worst food I ever had at a restaurant. I feel like that's saying something. It was so bad.
Is
it was
it
like
worse
eating
than
a rubber chicken.
Is it worse than Denny's?
It's like Denny's, but it was way worse in terms of
Jeez.
quality. I picked something on the menu that I thought was good. I'm like, oh, this looks good. It was like a pulled barbecue chicken sandwich with like these onion rings on. I'm like, oh, this will be good. And it was just like I bit into it. I was like, oh, I'm like, this is so bad. And then I just left most of it on the plate. That's how bad it was.
I find this story funny. So Lord Shaper in the chat says, once I was working in retail and the store owner didn't like me but couldn't get rid of me because I didn't do anything wrong. So I told him I'd outlast him there, and he ended up selling the business before I left.
Good for him.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
Perkins is a southern Denny's. Yeah, it's terrible. Don't go there. Oh, good. Yeah, I was actually surprised how bad it was, because it was. Anyways, the other thing about that, just to go on about my food story, Crofton. Sorry, I'm derailing you here.
Yeah.
But the day before, I went to this fancy like hipster restaurant down the street from me, and it had this like pork loin thing, which was so good. It was amazing. And then we were gonna go to a restaurant the next day again with Andrew's parents. They're like, "We're gonna go to Perkins." I was like, "Oh yeah," and I was all high on this good restaurant experience. I'm like, I bet it'll be good. I'll get something deep fried, and then it was just so shitty.
It's just,
So shitty.
it's funny. So this has nothing to do with restaurants.
That's fine.
But so yeah, no, I actually got a lot of sleep last night or whatever, and Jesse did the drop off and stuff like that. So it's like almost 11 Eastern, and I'm pretty jacked. Like, we've just done the show and I'm jacked. I'm like, fuck, I'm not gonna sleep. Or like, I have a gift to be able to sleep, but I know that I'm gonna be like
Good thing it's Friday tomorrow, and
long weekend.
if you don't
yeah.
end up sleeping
Play
too
video
much,
games.
you'll be fine.
That's my solution to most problems, Mike.
Most problems in life. Well,
Jesse's like, Gwen is sick. I'm like, that's all right. What do I do? I'll play Hearthstone. She's like, no, that doesn't solve anything. I'm like, oh,
well, it'll pass the time, and she'll heal over time. So yeah.
It works. Can't the robot doctor heal her? I told you that's not a thing. I'm like, it should be. Stupid 40-hour work weeks.
All right. So, but on that note, what were you gonna say? You wanted to keep live streaming for another 3 hours, or?
Oh no. I was just.
You're just saying, sharing. Okay, cool.
I was sharing, but then I realized I'm live streaming, and then I edited my story considerably, which made it lose all purpose.
Yeah. So, well, let's say bye to the live stream, even though
I've been enjoying looking at the live stream.
I know, Mike. He's coming around. He's kind of like reading what It's
yeah,
just
well,
fun
look at it
when
after the conversation.
Yeah, it's fun when people just. That's what the whole streaming appeal is people
Lord
chat with you.
Shaper's in Australia. What time is it there now? I guess the opposite of now.
What? He's in
The
Australia?
morning.
Yeah, he's
It's
Australian.
Oz, unless he's in that prison on what channel? What show is that?
You don't have that over here in Oz. Oh shit! Yeah,
So it's like the morning.
that's crazy.
My neighbor is an Australian guy. He's a nice fellow.
My mom's from New Zealand.
Hey, maybe they know each other
No,
because they're both from Australia.
No.
I didn't say that but Australia is the America of Oceania, isn't it? And
Oh, it's true.
New Zealand is the Canada.
Canada for sure. For sure.
yeah,
They're
Americans
always like
that.
Maybe we
Hey,
can get
you're Canadian. I met a guy from Canada one time. You know him? And I'd be like, no, I don't.
Yeah.
You ever
His
been to Toronto? That's my American impression. Hell, I hear you guys have call me healthcare up there. How's that work out for you?
Look, I don't know the guy. Really? His name is Bo. I met him at BoCon. You're like, oh, technically I do know him, but just because I know him doesn't mean I know all Canadians. Do you know Crofton? Okay, I know him too. Gah. Stupid American.
I also enjoy doing American impressions because Americans always like to do the Canadian impressions too, where they're like, "Oh, hello, what are you doing about a boot there, eh?" Or
Hey, you
whatever.
want to go to the Tim Hortons, eh? But make sure you clean off your car before we go because there's lots of snow outside, huh?
Yeah.
Well, okay then.
The thing is, when I'd be in New Zealand, like, it'd be really funny. They'd be watching TV, and every once in a while, like, there's, like, their channels are really funny because it's like, and I think it's like this in the UK too. It's like 1, 2, 3. It's like, you are now watching 3. Like that's like, it's like
That's
Maybe
awesome.
it's in something 3. It's like, hey, did you see the program on 3 last night or whatever? But one thing that is funny is that like if they would get an Australian channel or they were watching an Australian show, it's sort of like the way that we talk about, like Canadian TV versus American TV, right? Like it'd be like, it's crap. The New Zealand made in New Zealand shows, people would be like, that's crappy. But I watch some Aussie show and it's like the big leagues or whatever, which always made me laugh because Australia has a smaller population than Canada, so
That's true.
we're the big leagues. You're
are.
at
Sort of.
Australia?
Well,
All right.
on that note, thanks,
yeah.
chat people, for hanging out and being fun.
You guys are great,
Okay.
and these are like this is a small little. You're a small little base. You're here at the ground floor on episode 208.
Yeah.
You're right at the beginning. Yeah, Lord Shaper, see him all the time. Wicked Kitten, of course, mod extraordinaire. She also, that's her other job, is modding our channel during shows and my stream too. And
What does that mean, modding?
modding, like some jerk came in here and actually said something. It wasn't rude, but it was like something really stupid, and I saw
What was
she banned him. What was it? Okay, you want to know?
banished? We should use the term banishing. It's better.
It was banished. I'm just scrolling up to see if I can't find it. Okay, so Lord of Thirst came in and said, I got a question. He said, if Lil Pump was going pump a girl with his Lil Pump, and it turned out to be Lil Uzi's girl, so he tried to Uzi Lil Pump with his Lil Uzi, but Lil Pump pulls a gun to pump Lil Uzi with bullets, who would win? And Wicked Kitten banned that person. Banned him.
She's done well.
See? Yeah, exactly. She does a good job. She knows what to ban to make her chat a safe place for.
It's the equivalent of the throttle button that we wish that we had. I'd like Bo sometimes delivering a verdict. I'm like, I wish I had a ban button. I'd just ban him right now.
It's funny how the internet's like that. It's like you were at like a live show. I guess there are hecklers at live shows, right? But where people just show up at a live show and shit on it, and you're like, why did you go to it if you didn't like the thing? Like just to be an asshole. Like,
why did you show up at BoCon with a bucket of tomatoes? Just to throw them at Bo? God.
No one would do that to Bo.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, but anyways, thank you, live stream. Your best audience any show has ever had, and we're gonna go and do our own things now because showtime is over. But thanks. It was a nice, good post show. This is good post-coitus pillow talk. I loved it. Post-coital pillow talk.
Tell me when it's close so I can tell you the true thing about the sleep.
Oh, and we're gonna share secrets because whatever. Have a good night, everyone, and thank you. And we'll see you next week.